Well, Donald Trump suffered a crushing defeat today on the thing he obviously cares about most in this world now. No, not Greenland. Donald Trump doesn't care about Greenland anymore. And no, not annexing Canada and making it the 51st state. Donald Trump doesn't care about that anymore either. Donald Trump's one thing at a time attention span should be on his war that he started in Iran, but it's not, as he proved once again today. Donald Trump, as everyone in the world now knows, including the governing regime in Iran that he is at war with, now cares about the ballroom he dreams of building more than anything else in the world. And someone who Donald Trump doesn't even know exists crushed Donald Trump's ballroom dream in the United States Senate, where Donald Trump was hoping Republicans would include $1 billion in a reconciliation bill to pay for Donald Trump's ballroom, which Donald Trump previously told the lie would not require 1 penny of government money. But the Senate parliamentarian has ruled that according to the strict rules of reconciliation bills, which are uniquely allowed to move through the Senate on simple majority votes of 51, Donald Trump's ballroom cannot be included in a budget reconciliation bill because it doesn't meet those parliamentary rules. Donald Trump, of course, now wants the Senate parliamentarian fired. Senate parliamentarian Elizabeth McDonough has been on the job in the Senate since the Democratic majority leader of the Senate at the time, Harry Reid, got her appointed to the job in 2012. Her 14 years as a Senate parliamentarian respected by both Democrats and Republicans is an impressive record, but she is not the most experienced parliamentary expert working in the United States Senate. That is a person Donald Trump has never heard of. He is a parliamentary expert who has made the Senate his life's work. He has been regarded with awe by the most high-ranking and powerful Senate staffers for many decades now, and he has been relied on by Democratic senators and Democratic presidents to save the day more times than anyone can count, from the Clinton administration right through this week. Every reconciliation bill that comes to the Senate floor is challenged by the opposition for parliamentary reasons, and no one has won more of those challenge arguments than Bill Douster, who now serves as senior counsel to the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee. And without mentioning his name, the top Democrat on that committee, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, explained in a video how Bill Douster, along with other Democratic Senate staffers, convinced parliamentarian Elizabeth McDonough to rule against Donald Trump's ballroom. The details of this story are just exquisite for people who already understand Senate parliamentary rules. All you have to know to follow what Senator Whitehouse is about to tell you is that a reconciliation bill includes instructions to every Senate committee that has a piece of that bill, and nothing can get into a reconciliation bill that doesn't comply with those instructions. Don't worry about understanding every little twist and turn that Senator Whitehouse describes in this video you're about to see. Just feel his joy in killing the billionaire ballroom in the Senate and his admiration of and reliance on the brilliant work of Bill Douster and other Senate staffers who personally made their case directly to the Senate parliamentarian, just as capable Republican Senate staffers made their case to the Senate parliamentarian before she ruled. But those Republican Senate staffers are used to losing with the Senate parliamentarian when Bill Douster is involved, the man who really crushed the billionaire ballroom with the Senate parliamentarian.
If you want to know how we blew up the Trump billionaire ballroom in the reconciliation process, let me take you into the parliamentary arguments where we won. In order to get the funding through the reconciliation process, the Republicans had to give reconciliation instructions to all the relevant committees. Well, I'm the top Democrat on the Environment and Public Works Committee. Martin Heinrich is the top Democrat on the Energy and Natural Resources Committee. And guess what? The White House is a public building under the jurisdiction of the Environment Public Works Committee, and it's in a national park under the jurisdiction of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee. And the Republicans managed not to give reconciliation instructions to either committee. So our lawyers went in, mine arguing for EPW, Martin's arguing for Energy and Natural Resources, that the reconciliation was defective, could not put money to the ballroom because there was no proper instruction allowing money to go to the ballroom because of the jurisdiction of EPW and ENR. We won that argument. It was well prepared and well delivered, and it took only one day for the parliamentarian to decide that, in fact, the ballroom being added to the reconciliation bill was defective and it had to fall. So, bye-bye, Billionaire Ballroom.
People like Bill Douster and hundreds of other invisible congressional staffers will never be thanked enough for the work that they do in government service.